Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome to HarmonyTALK, a podcast about dreamers and doers. We talk with people from all walks of life and hear them tell us about their dreams, how they fulfilled them, and the moment they knew there was no turning back. This podcast is sponsored by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business started in 1920. I'm your host, Todd Stephens. All dreamers and doers seem to have a common experience. They've had to outrun challenges to achieve success. My guest today is literally proving that to be true. David Millar grew up in the picturesque resort town of Ocean City, New Jersey. As a young person, he became a lifeguard and found satisfaction in helping others. Unfortunately, at the early age of 16, he found himself in the throes of addiction. The struggle that followed would careen him through several rehabs and relapses, even a period of homelessness, until he finally broke free. Fortunately, he found a way to leverage his all-in personality to plot his comeback. David continues to outrun his challenges as an ultramarathoner, and his purpose is lifting up those who suffer and to bring attention to addiction as a disease. Now, having once dropped out of college, he's in medical school with dreams of becoming a neurosurgeon. His goal? Helping people afflicted with brain disorders. David Millar, welcome to HarmonyTALK.
Thank you so much for having me. That was great. That was a great intro.
Well, I appreciate that, and you certainly deserve it. Congratulations on over 6 years of sobriety at this point, from what I understand.
Yep, 6 years in April. So
That's awesome. Congratulations.
thank you.
And, I have to ask, because when we hear the word ultramarathon, there's an assumption that it has something to do with running, of course. Can you tell us exactly what qualifies as an ultramarathon?
Yeah. So an ultramarathon is any distance that is over a marathon. So common distances include 50 Ks, which is about 32 miles, 50 miles, 100 Ks, which is about 62 miles, and 100 miles. And there's some crazy ones, but those are the big ones.
Crazy indeed. I read somewhere where I think 12 to 15% of Americans have run a 5K. It's something like, 0.05 had run a marathon. And I believe the statistic is 0.007 have actually run an ultramarathon.
Wow,
So,
that's a
yeah.
crazy stat. I've not seen that actually. That actually is sparking some ideas for me, like for a post, actually, as you say that.
Well, good. I know you have a great social media presence, and I'd remind people we're going to talk about that in a bit. But not only motivation, but also introducing, thoughts on your recovery path, and you're interested in helping others, which is what I really want to talk about with you, because I think your message is going to resonate with so many people. But just to go back a bit, when I think about your upbringing, you grew up in Ocean City, New Jersey. And those of us on the East Coast, certainly those in the Mid-Atlantic, know that it's really a picturesque, ideal town. I think of the boardwalk. I think of the ocean. Pretty sweet. But what was it like for you?
It was perfect. I mean, I had a perfect upbringing. There was nothing really about my upbringing that tilted me to become addicted to any substances. It was kind of just something that I believe was always inside of me. I can't complain about my upbringing. It was great. I had a good family. I had every opportunity that I needed. I went to Ocean City High School, so I went to high school literally on the island, the beach right out of our back window. We had biology class on the beach in the winter. Looked at all the horseshoe crabs. Rode bikes on the boardwalk for gym class. So it was awesome.
It sounds wonderful. I think many people think that sounds like vacation to them, but this was your life. Very idyllic at the time, I'm sure. And as a young person in Ocean City, what were your dreams? Did you have a dream of, I want to be, this, that, follow this profession, follow this, pursuit?
Never really had an idea of exactly what I wanted to do. I think I was kind of developing that as I went into high school. Always knew I kind of wanted to do something healthcare related because the lifeguarding, like you had mentioned. But kind of that got interfered with, that thinking process, with the substances that were introduced into my life. And that whole spree kind of sidetracked everything for me.
Now, for those who don't know, Ocean City is actually a dry town. There are no bars, there are no liquor stores. But kids are kids, right? And they'll be creative. How did addiction start for you?
I saw a shirt on the beach the other day that somebody was wearing, and it was like Ocean City, the wettest dry town that exists, because it's a dry town, but you can still bring your own bottle and stuff like that.
I just said, being in Ocean City, that's supposedly a dry town. How did addiction start for you? I assume friend groups, outside influences have something to do with that.
Yeah, just normal drinking experiences as a high schooler. People in my that were close to me in my family had struggled with alcohol that I had noticed when I was coming up as an adult, and that kind of always deterred me from it. I wanted to be careful of it, but there did come a time when eventually I was like, you know what, I think I'm ready to try this now. Right when I tried it, it took everything away. I remember it. It felt just the excitement that came, like the riskiness of it, and not knowing what to expect, and doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. And then also just the physical and mental relief that I got, and I could just finally just take a breath. And right when I did it, I knew I was going to do it again. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to keep doing it for as long as I did it or as intensely as I did it, but I know that it did something for me that was profound internally, and I just wanted to feel that way again.
Now, were you a risk taker as a younger child? Was that something that you kind of saw in your personality?
A little bit. I'd say I was very intense. I always did things to the absolute max. So, for example, when I was a skateboarder, and I loved skateboarding. I loved it so much to the point where I built a half pipe in my backyard. Bought the wood and built the half pipe in my backyard. There's a bunch of instances in my life where I find something that I really like to do, and I do it to the extent. And to be honest, I feel like I still do that today, despite all of this. And even though like that intensity didn't necessarily serve me in terms of drinking, I feel like I'm more careful with it. But I just feel like that's my personality. That's just who I am.
So more about channeling the intensity in a more productive direction, I guess, is the corner that you found. But it took you some time because it didn't stop with alcohol for you, from what I understand.
No. So I went on to try cocaine, and that was I don't think I was even 18 when I first did that. But when I did that, that was really like a white light moment for me where I was like, okay, this is really what I like. And when I did that, I was pretty sure that like I was going to be doing this for a while, for the first time, and that just led to me, wanting to know who sold it so I could get their phone number, wanting to know how I could get more, because when I did it for the first time, like it wasn't mine, like it kind of just happened, and I wanted to, I wanted all the details so that I could be sure that I'd be in this situation again come next weekend or whatever. When I want something, like I'm pretty focused on getting it, and I would get those details, and it would pan out for me, and I would do it again and again and again, and yeah, it would spiral out of control. It's not a good thing. That drug it literally hijacks your reward system. So
Yeah, when you say hijacks your reward system, the things that run through my head are, were you doing it just because that's the nature of your personality to take risks, or were you running from something, or were you running to something? Was it the adventure, the excitement angle of things?
I think it was all three of those things. I think it was the excitement. I think it was running from the demons inside of me, taking away those noises that were just, I'm not good enough, I'm not social enough. It made me feel like I could talk to anybody. It made me feel like I could make any friend I wanted to make. It did so many things for me. It took the right things away. It gave me the right things. I think it's a combo.
Wow, that's interesting. And just to pause on the one thing you mentioned there that I think, young people who certainly deal with these situations every single day or weekend of their, you know, growing up phases of life, if you will, have that sound in their head that you just mentioned. I'm not good enough. I need to be better. I'm significantly older than you. And I would say that it took me, decades longer to get that feeling. And, how can we do a better job with youth ensuring that they understand that they are good enough? And that's one thing that I think about when I hear someone your age, say those words.
It's normal to feel that way. It's a part of life. You need to go through those dark phases of life to build the confidence and the self-esteem that you'll ultimately need to deal with the difficulties that are inevitably going to come when you go through the rest of your life. So that's the way that I like to think about it. I talk, and we need more people to talk about it. Is how you fix it, in my opinion. I try to talk about it on my social media. I talk a lot about being broken, but I don't talk about it in a bad way. I talk about it as a great thing. I think that pain is the opportunity of a lifetime. And I think that everything that you go through is ultimately building you to get through something that's inevitably going to come at you in the future. And you need to be ready. And getting ready is never easy. Like training for an ultramarathon is not easy. Studying for a medical exam is not easy, but you need to do it in order to get to where you want to go, so it's the same thing. And that's how I try to think about it. And that's what I tell people that come to me with they're struggling with something. It doesn't matter what they're struggling with. Like it's all the same. And it's just, God's giving you an opportunity right now to really get to that next level.
And also, you don't have to go it alone, correct?
That is literally, I just learned that on Saturday when I was running an ultramarathon. That is the takeaway point from my race this past weekend. There is support everywhere. There's people that want the best for you at all times. There's people that are going to be by your side no matter what. And you need those people in your life.
And you've learned those lessons now looking back. But when you were really in the throes of your addiction, you had some really hard times. You mentioned being homeless at one point and, living in shelters. Does it take hitting rock bottom to give you the momentum to spring back?
I think everybody's different. I wouldn't say so. I know people that went to much darker places than I did, and I know people that didn't go to as dark places as I did. And, I envy the people that didn't, because they were able to figure it out before I was. But there's this saying in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it says that every rock bottom has a trap door. So rock bottom isn't even really a thing. It can just keep going down, So it's just when are you done? When are you done? Like, when do you want something? When do you want another life? When you want another shot? When you want all this to end? And when are you ready to do the work? So I think it's different for everybody. I look back on my story, I reflect, and I say I had to get to that point. I just had to. There's a point for me. It was just like, there was nothing anybody could tell me. There was nothing. The pain needed to be great enough to the point where I was ready. So for me, that's what it took, but not for everybody.
And like you said, everyone is different. So that obviously is defined in many different ways, depending on the individual. But with you had been through treatment programs before. And I think I've heard you say in posts before in other interviews that it didn't matter. You weren't ready at that time. What was your kind of white light moment, as you call it, to say, you know what, this is the time for me. I am ready. I want to make a change.
Yeah. So going back to that other people piece was big for me. I ran into people who were my age in treatment. I was coming in at like 19, 20 years old, and just like dumbfounded by how I was going to live a life with no alcohol and how I was going to be able to have any fun or derive any purpose or meaning or, get a girlfriend or anything without something that had just been my crutch for everything that I had been doing for the past several years. And I think it was just running into these people that were just excited about the possibility of sobriety. And they were my age too. And they were excited to go to meetings. And they usually, the clients dread going to the meetings. They want to stay in bed and watch movies, but they were excited. They wanted to get a sponsor. They wanted to work the steps. They wanted to feel better. And it wasn't that they were excited for like 30 days from now or 2 months from now or 6 months from now. It was like they were excited. They would go to meetings and see the guys with like 10 years and 15 years, and they would see how happy they were and the fulfillment on their face in the meetings. And they would hear them share at the podium, and they would see where their life is at. And they have this idea in their head of like, well, if I just didn't drink a day at a time, in 5 years, what would my life look like? In 10 years, what will my life look like? It's like that shift of thinking really long term and being like, if I can just remove one thing, how different would my life look a decade from now, 2 decades from now? It's not just this short term, like instant gratifying, like 2 weeks, 30 days, 60 days. It's like really looking at it grand scheme and being like, I can really just by the process of taking out one thing and surrounding myself with these people, like my life can turn around and look like this.
That's amazing because that really takes a high level view, a 30,000-foot view, and there must be some level of maturity that's required to do that. But as a young person struggling, it sounds like finding a like-minded group of people who are facing the same challenges is really what did it for you.
Yeah, 100%. I've just the excitement was contagious and it wore off on me. I really didn't have a choice. I hung out with these guys because they were my age and they were excited about what they were excited about, and just by a matter of me being around them for multiple hours a day, I started getting excited about the same stuff, and here we are. So that just goes to show the power of positive thinking and how contagious it is. People talk about negative thinking being contagious. Positive thinking is arguably even more contagious.
I completely agree. I was, as a young person, a student of Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. And my father introduced me to that as a young person, and still resonates with me today. So I couldn't agree with you more, my friend. And going through all this, I have to ask, must really take a toll on those around you, those who you're closest to, your family, for instance. Were they supportive through this process for you?
Very supportive, but their support looked different at different stages throughout the process. At first, it was very lovey-dovey. It was very almost enabling. It was too much love, and it gave me a opportunity to take advantage of their care for me. And I did, and eventually got to the point where it was tough love, and it was like, no, you're not going to come home. You're gonna, if you don't want to go get help, then you can go out on the streets. You can go to the shelter. It was very hard. That was probably the hardest part for me, going through that, seeing my mom crying, seeing my sister bawling her eyes out, begging me to go back to treatment, begging me to stop what I was doing. But I knew I wasn't going to. I knew I couldn't. I was literally just, I had to keep doing what I was doing. And it hurt. It hurt me, and it hurt them. And, thank God that now we're able to have dinner like a great family again and laugh about the whole thing, even though it wasn't funny at all at the time. But now it's like looking back on it and everything that's transpired now, we all just laugh and just can't believe it. And yeah.
I'm sure it's a laughter of relief.
Yeah.
And love without a
Yes.
doubt. As a parent, you talk about tough love and and you're at some point taking advantage of the easy love, if you will, but you are always faced with the challenge with dealing with your children. I don't want to be too tough because I don't want to push them further, into darkness. I don't know if you have any advice to parents who are helping their children or other loved ones through this to, monitor where they're at emotionally to make sure that, you're there for them. I know that's kind of a loaded question and maybe different for everyone, but do you have any words of advice on that?
Hard to say. I think that it just comes down to, if we're talking about addiction here, I think it comes down to the point where the addict they need to be done. And a lot of times, in order for them to be done, they need to play out every single idea, every single archetype in their mind, and they need to play it out till it's completely done, until it completely fails, so that they know for sure that no matter what they do, it's going to end the same exact way. So it's not a matter of being ready, it's a matter of being done. And I think that as a catalyst for that to happen, you really just need to put your hands up and say, you go do what you want to play out and do. And when you have seen that it is going to defeat itself over and over and over again, no matter which alleyway you take, then come back and we'll get the help that you need. Now, it's not that simple in all circumstances. It never is. But that would be my advice. I think like weaning more on the tough side is definitely better than weaning more on the enabling side.
That's great advice, and I think you put it well when you say, you need to be done. That's a great concept I think we should all think about, because I know one of your primary concerns is, looking at addiction as a disease, and how are we failing this disease in the country right now?
I think stigma is a big thing. I think there's a lot of stigma around it. I've dealt with some of that stigma. I try not to use it as an excuse for me to not do something that I feel like I want to do, but I think that it's hard for addicts and alcoholics, even though they're recovered, to have certain opportunities that maybe they should have, or they get looked at a certain way. I also think that even just going out to the bar, drinking a water and having somebody offer you a beer and you saying no, and then that person has like a certain look in their eye because you said no. It's just, when you tell somebody that you don't drink, they automatically assume that something's wrong with you. And I think that is, I just don't like that narrative, because first of all, there's people that don't drink because they just don't drink. And second of all, just because you've had, a problem in the past doesn't mean that you're not a good person or you have a willpower problem. That's a big thing I was told, was that I have a willpower problem, but I don't really think that I have a willpower problem, because like that wasn't the solution to me getting sober. Wasn't willpower. The solution was spiritual intervention. And I think it's just a misunderstood disease. I think the brain in general is misunderstood, and that's why I'm very passionate about exploring that and going into the field of medicine I want to go into. I think the brain is a very unknown frontier. I think there's a lot of things that we still need to know in order to advance these kinds of things.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And your pursuit of neuroscience is fascinating to me because of what you just talked about with, the different stigmas around, and what we don't know about ourselves, and then what other people assume, they know about us just by a chance meeting. But the one last question I want to ask you about your sobriety journey is, how important was faith through your whole process?
So important. Um, it didn't start off as the most important thing. I think the people were the most important thing at the start, because I didn't really understand faith. I just couldn't really fathom it. It was too big of a thing for me. And but all the people I was around had the faith. So eventually, we talked about the excitement wearing off of me. The faith started wearing off of me too. And then I started figuring out that the common denominator to all these people that were living great lives was their faith, because I kept asking them. I was like, how do you have this 30-year marriage that's going so good for you? How do you have, this job that you love showing up to every day? How do you keep coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous to help these 20-year-olds for 15 years? You've been going to the same meeting. Like, don't you get tired of it? This common denominator in all circumstances is always faith. So then, when you have enough experience of that, you start to like question like your perspective on faith, and you're like, well, maybe I actually do need that. And you combine that with listening to some of these people's stories. I mean, I'm just one story out of a whole million of people in that go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, you sit in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, you don't need any more motivation for the day after you sit in one of those. I mean, there's people like me telling their story like all over the world in AA every single day. So like, and the common denominator again, like most of the time, is God. So eventually, that wore off on me, and I started taking it seriously, and huge game changer for me. Once I tapped into that, I really started feeling healed up, and I really started feeling free mentally, and I really like stopped waking up with that obsessive thought of, "Oh, I need a drink or I need a drug today," or the anxiety stuff too. Like, that was almost even worse for me, like the depression, the anxiety, waking up, like not liking who I was, not having confidence, self-esteem. All of that it equals out with faith. They can't coexist.
That's amazing, because the partnership of those that you just mentioned there, when I'm talking to you or when I see your social media posts, that comes through 100% and more. And I mentioned, you're very active on social media, and over 90,000 followers on Instagram, and you're on X. Very inspiring stuff. Kind of to segue into, what your life is today, one of the things I read, that you put out on social media was, kind of hit home for me, which was great. Some need antidepressants, others need running shoes and an impossible goal. I thought that's terrific because clearly, as you just mentioned a moment ago, there is a need. Mental health struggles are real. Addiction is a disease, and there is a place for modern medicine for those who need it. But for you, really, the motivation is, like you said, you need running shoes and a goal. And is that what got you into ultramarathoning? Is that where you said, this is where I'm taking it?
Yeah, kind of. Modern medicine has a place, but I think that behavioral medicine, like behavioral therapeutics, are undervalued a lot of times in the medical field. And I sit through my medical school classes and I come to understand this even more. And I think that it's better to start with a behavioral therapeutic than it is to put somebody on a mind altering substance. Um, and especially in the realm of addiction, because that was my story. I walked into detoxes and I got put on a bunch of things because I was detoxing off of these like literally crack cocaine, and obviously I was anxious, obviously I was depressed, but I was put on these medications. I was put on enough medications for a paranoid schizophrenic at one point in my sobriety, and I didn't need to be on all that medicine. And it was making me fall asleep at noon, and it was making me wake up drowsy and tired. And it was, taking away my personality and really affecting my recovery. So that's why I put stuff out there like that. I don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on antidepressants or SSRIs. I think they're incredible drugs. I'm just coming at it from a different perspective, from the addiction side of things. But yeah, I mean that addiction and my recovery journey, ultra marathons are the exact they like replicate the journey of addiction into recovery. There's just insurmountable obstacles and loneliness and just so many things and roller coasters of emotions that you need to be able to just overcome, and you need to just take one more step, one more step, one more step, and eventually something beautiful begins to happen. So I think that when I went through what I went through with sobriety, I realized that maybe I needed to put more challenging things in front of me. Maybe I wasn't giving myself as much credit as I needed to be giving myself, and maybe I needed to, just take more risks and do more of what I loved, and that led me into running ultra marathons.
And I have to mention this again. Your numbers are so impressive. You just ran 109 miles in Pennsauken, New Jersey, just a few days ago prior to this recording, and you maintained a 13-minute mile. Now, 109 miles, that's more than most of us, well, I'll speak for myself anyway, will run in a lifetime. What's going through your mind as you pile mile upon mile? Because you're just out there hitting it, and I imagine your mind is going as fast as your feet. Is that accurate or not?
100%. I almost quit at mile 85. Thank God I had the right people around me, my girlfriend, my family. Sorry.
It's an incredible achievement.
What's going through my mind is that it's all kind of the same kind of pain. When life gives me things that suck, they feel very similar to the same. I get this pit in my stomach when I run, and when I get to miles like mile 85, and I get these pits that I don't think I can get through, and everything like they're different circumstances, but they all kind of feel this like the same feeling. And I think a lot about other things I've been through where I've gotten that pit in my stomach, and I thought I needed to quit, but then I ended up, getting through it, and my life changed dramatically as a result. And I think about times like those, and I think about other people going through times like those that don't have the experience that I have of, if you just persisted and got through it, that you would see that you were supposed to go through it in the first place. And, beautiful things are born in dark places. And I'd like to really show people that just because something feels terrible in the moment doesn't mean that it's going to have a terrible result.
That's beautiful. Absolutely is. And you've been known to write notes on your arms in Sharpie when you're running. What do they say?
I did a 100K this summer through the mountains up near State College, Penn State College in Happy Valley. And I dedicated that whole run to addiction recovery. and I wrote on my wrist, I wrote for the sick and the lost, and it was dedicated to people still struggling from addiction. It was dedicated to everybody that we've lost to this disease, and it was really meant to. I didn't ask for any money. It was meant to just raise awareness for the stigma and for people going through the trenches of addiction, and it was just meant to really bring hope to that population of people struggling, and it really gained a lot of traction online, and it got reposted by my college, which was nice, and it landed me on some podcasts, and here I am talking about it on this podcast too. So I think it did really reach and help a lot of people, which I'm really grateful for.
Well, it certainly reached us. And I think that not only is that great motivation for other folks to at least appreciate that there are other people out there who are thinking about them and still battling every day for them, but I can see and I can tell just in our short conversation here how much that means to you, which is inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Um, and what's harder, the recovery path or running 109 miles in 24 hours?
Recovery. Easy.
No,
Nothing,
nothing
nothing is
compares,
harder
right?
than that. I'm telling you. And for anybody going through it, if you're listening, that first year of sobriety, sometimes it's even like 2 years. Sometimes, it's the hardest thing that you will ever do, but it is the most rewarding thing that will ever happen. You'll look back on it. It'll be the worst thing that you thought happened to you, but it's actually such a gift and a blessing in disguise. I tell people this all the time, and it's impossible to explain because it's really like not like an academic process. Like it's not a textbook thing. Like you can't like drill it into somebody's head like you can like a mathematics equation. Like it's an experiential process. It needs to be experienced. You need to feel everything that you need to feel. And you need to get to that other side of the fence so that you can look back on it with a new set of eyes and be like, okay, I understand now. Like I understand why I needed to go through all that. It was for a reason. Like it wasn't a waste. Like you learn so much about yourself, and it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. And I have so much empathy for people going through it because I remember it like it's yesterday. It's 6 years later. I got a ton of stuff to worry about that's not addiction, like my studies, my running, but I still like can remember it as clear as day when I think about it. That pain, waking up every day, hating who I was, not liking myself, and not understanding like why I was going through it, and not knowing how I was going to live a life like this because it didn't make any sense to me. But I just listened to the people around me, and by some miracle I was able to take the suggestions I needed to take and implement the changes that I needed to change. And I want to empathize with people that it's super 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 difficult, but it's possible, and there's people doing it, and there's support, there's free support, there's no charge. You go to AA meetings for free, NA meetings for free. You get the help that you need. You sit down with another person who's literally been in your shoes before, and they don't charge you anything. And it's free help, and it's literally from the heart. And it's some of the most powerful stuff I've ever experienced. And it goes on every single day. And there's really good people out there that know what they're doing, and that can really help you. So that's really what I would say. And yeah, I've done 300 milers now. I've done a 50 mile across the Grand Canyon. I'm in medical school. None of it comes close. Not even close. Doesn't even skim the surface of the kind of pain that, people have to go through to change their lives like that.
Well, hopefully you're sharing your story, which you just did, helps others realize how difficult it is to take the journey through recovery. Like you said, you run 100 milers, you are in medical school, and compared to the recovery journey, they just don't. And I thank you for sharing that. And this is a podcast about dreamers and doers. And, you are living the dream right now, I think, with your recovery, and you're doing big time. Your medical school, and, you look to accomplish great things as a physician. And I think, more people need to hear we're all put on this planet for a reason. And, there's always something greater out there. And it seems that medicine at this point is your greater calling. What do you want to accomplish as a physician?
I want to accomplish a lot. I want to help the addiction population. I want to help break the stigma. I'm also obsessed with the brain, and I love the brain, and I just think it's beautiful, and I want to know more about it, and we don't know a lot about it, so I want to do that. I want to do a lot of things. Right now, I really like neurosurgery just because I like using my hands, and I like the brain, and I like understanding more about it, and I just think it's fascinating. And I'm also into the long surgeries, the long training. It just seems like a challenge, and I like challenges like that. And just the people and the personalities that are in that field really call to me as well. And just the kinds of patients that you get to help too. I mean, this patients just going through it, and to be in that position of privilege and to be able to extend your help to somebody that's in a life-altering situation like that is just invaluable, and I can't imagine how it feels to be in that position. So that's really what I want to do right now. But I'm not sure. I still have a long road ahead of me, so it could change. But regardless, I'm always going to be here advocating for the addiction population. I'm always going to be going to Alcoholics Anonymous and giving back to that community. I'm sure in one way or another I'll tie in the addiction into my practice, whatever I end up doing. But the biggest things are definitely the brain and addiction.
Well, you're going to do great things. I could tell just by what you've accomplished in the last several years and with your sobriety. And I got to just ask, David, where can others find you? Because you've got such a tremendous amount of experience packed into a short period of time, and especially as a young person, where can we find you? You're on socials, I know that.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is at david.millar.mindset. Millar is Millar. I'm most active on that. So I post daily motivational things. I post personal quotes from me. I post a lot about if I'm doing a race. Sometimes I fill in what I'm doing in medical school. So and sobriety stuff. It's just a combination of everything going on in my life. So if you want to learn more about that, you can follow me there. That's my main page.
Well, absolutely. I do follow you there. And as someone who's many years your senior, I can tell that your stuff is motivating me. So thank you for doing that because we all need some motivation, regardless of, our stage in life or what we've accomplished so far. And we wish you all the best in your studies, which is your doing part of your life right now at Penn State University, Hershey Medical Center. We know you're going to go on to do great things.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
No, David, it's been our pleasure. Thank you, and congratulations on your sobriety. Thanks for joining us on Harmony Talk, and we'll be following you as you continue making your dreams come true and helping others along the way.
Thanks, Todd.
We've been talking with David Millar, ultramarathoner, medical student, and motivational influencer. Don't forget to follow him at david.millar.mindset on Instagram and X. And if you or someone you know is looking for treatment center, visit treatmentatlas.org. And remember, help is always available at aa.org. Our thanks today also to the Storbridge Project for hosting us. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Harmony Talk Podcast presented by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business started in 1920. I'm Todd Stephens. For everyone out there, keep dreaming and doing.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.